the Spirit Sessions podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us, where I'll help you find your true spiritual home, where every single aspect of you is holy ground, holy ground, holy ground, holy ground.
This is Spirit Session Podcast with Katie Silcox. Venga chicos, empezamos.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hi everyone, Katie here. This podcast is intended to inspire you, educate you, and most importantly, support you on your journey towards knowing who you really are, that inner self, that inner teacher. I am not a psychologist or a medical doctor and do not offer professional health or medical advice on this podcast. If you are suffering from any kind of psychological or medical issue, please do the right thing and seek help from your qualified health professional. Everybody, it is your spiritual power hour, Ayurveda, Gal Friday, Gal Saturday, Gal any day you like it. Welcome everybody to Spirit Sessions podcast. I know. It sounds like you're in a cave, and that's because I'm in a cave. You guys, I just moved into my new house. I don't have my podcast studio set up, so forgive me on the sound, and shout out to my girl Eva, who does our edits every week. Eva, thanks for making it sound so beautiful, and we love you. We love you so much. Everybody, do you feel that I needed to even start the show with a little music of love, because I'm so happy to be here today with you talking about my heart. And that's what I do here. And every now and then we bring on someone else to talk about theirs. And when we both share our hearts, there's this mystical third heart that emerges from it. And that's called relationship, and that's called love. And what's so cool is that as I sit here alone in my kitchen recording this podcast, and you're out there in podcast land, we do the same for one another. There's an unseen cord that runs from my heart to yours. And in that base, this third thing can come through. And I just hope that wherever you are today, that you know that even if we don't know each other, I really appreciate you listening. The listeners of this podcast are how we keep it alive, and also how I get to every week do this really fun thing called talk to myself in an empty room about things that inspire me. And, you know, if you ever find anything super useful or touching in this podcast, just know that it's come from a place in me that's really suffered and really struggled and been able to illuminate something in my own heart that has reduced suffering. And that's what this podcast is all about. You guys, we just came out of eclipse season. If you're an American, you know that we're coming into election season, and stay tuned, because next week we're going to be releasing a podcast on how to not only stay sane and loving and kind and compassionate during this election season, but how to use the energy of the election season to actually transform and to contribute something holy and healthy to the conversation. So look for that next week. So one of the biggest questions we get into our inbox is, you know, what is Tantra? And what is this divine feminine stuff? And what are you guys doing over there in your level 1 that's really different? What we're attempting to do is to re-spiritualize, or make sure we continue spiritualizing our healthcare and Ayurveda. But apart from Ayurveda, I have been deeply informed through the past 20 years of my life in an ancient art from the subcontinent of India called Tantra. And you can go back and we'll provide some links. I did a couple of Tantra talks. And it's because we really could have a whole school just called Tantra school. And, maybe we'll do that one day. But what I tell people is that Ayurveda is level 1 and level 2. It really is Tantra school. And people who've gone to it know we do Ayurveda, but we also study Tantra. And as with everything, whether it be Ayurveda, any of these forms that touch to our collective humanity, we have two very different pathways when looking at them that hopefully can meet in the middle and merge somewhere. And so what is Tantra? Tantra is a beautiful word that tan means to expand, tra means a means by or a method. And if you go into the etymology of that word, you can find literally hundreds of meanings of the word. It's also a loom, a place where you weave. And what are we weaving? And that's the question. It's a methodology for tan to be expanded, tra, a means by. And so on one hand, we can define Tantra as anything in your life that is allowing you to expand. And then the question is, well, what does it mean to be expanded? And we can think about expansion not as our belt line as we age or eat too much Thanksgiving dinner. But expansion is the capacity to dissolve and de-solidify these very constricted, solidified states of mind. Okay. In other words, belief systems. In other words, feeling narratives, patterns in our neurology, patterns in our neurostructures, patterns in our movement, patterns in our emotion, patterns in how we talk to our friends and our lovers and our family. You've been expanded if you can go to your next Thanksgiving dinner, which by the way, it's coming up soon, and you're still going to get triggered, touched by ridiculousness. But if you can allow a sense of something bigger, a higher mind, an expanded consciousness to be able to hold all of what's going on, that is Tantra. Tantra is on a grand scale, the awareness that this limited sense of who you are, of your personality and your body and the roles that you play in the world, that limitation, that limited sense of self, the ego, if you will, it's not the whole story. And hallelujah, So we've got that, and we're going to come back to that left hand. But on the right hand, just as we do with Ayurveda, we can pay deep honor to this word as originating in the subcontinent of India. And Tantra is a lot of things. So a Tantra is a text. A Tantra is a methodology. A Tantra is a theory, a system, an instrument, a technique. A Tantra is a practice. It's a grouping, a school of thought. And we know that its origins come from India, but it was expanded to many of the Buddhist countries as well. And so you have both Tantric Hinduism as well as Buddhism. Tantra has existed for a really, really long time. And we indeed find the word loom or weaving device in the most ancient of religious texts on the planet, which is the Rig Veda from about 1700 BCE, it is said. But we don't see a full flowering of this type of theory until much later on in its history in 300 to 900, and then even into the modern era, right? And so Tantra is really hard to historically define precisely because this tradition is so open to being open. It's a method for expansion. And so tantrics are very open to whatever works to expand, to open. There is a lot written about Tantra. I'm going to provide a couple of book recommendations in the show notes for sure for you guys. But What's challenging about Tantra is that it often incorporates many different traditions. And Georg Fierstein is one of my favorite Indologists and historical writers on Tantra. And he says the many facets of Tantric psychology and practice are relevant to all who seek to cultivate self-understanding and are sincerely engaged in a task of spiritual transformation. He walks us through this beautiful Indian heritage where we see that Tantra is not what Westerners have made it out to be, which is a mere discipline of ritualized or even sacred sex. Now, there's nothing wrong with sacred sex, of course, but this spiritual tradition, as Fierstein shows us, has a number of different highlights to it that give us an indication that it's Tantric. One of them, I would say, is the working with the body's endogenous energies. And so we're not just thinking about our spiritual practice. We're not just meditating, on emptiness. We're actually going and investigating the physiology, the body itself. So the body is not seen as it had been for a very long time. The body is not seen as an impediment. The body is actually seen as the vehicle. And the energies of the body are honored as divine energies. Typically, you would do Tantra only with a good teacher. And that's not because, let me say it like this. The reason you need a teacher is that A, when you start working with your energy and you start opening your mind into your body, the sum total storehouse of all of your past is revealed to you. And that can be quite challenging. There's a reason that you and I want to do everything but experience our bodies and our minds and our energies. And so Fierstein guides us in understanding these major tenets of Tantra, which includes this understanding of samsara. And of course, you can find that in Buddhism as well. So what is samsara? And again, this isn't about becoming a Hindu or a Buddhist or adapting any particular religion. We can see these tenets expressed perennially in all of our ancient traditions. There is a psychological interpretation of these that's helpful even if one is an atheist. So what is samsara? Samsara is defined as the repetitive cyclical existence that humans go through in their experience of time as linear and finite. Tantra understands that embodiment is a key practice for awakening to the body's capacity to reveal states of consciousness that have been hidden to us, right? And so you may be like, what are you talking about, Silkax? Well, first of all, you should join level 1, and we're going to do a year of this together. Ayurveda school is Tantra school. But, in all of the meditations in Glowworthy is a book on Tantra. It is. In all of these meditations that I've offered up for free in this podcast where we've gotten grounded, these are all Tantric methodologies. They're using the energies of your body and the earth to create an intended effect. So another of these key aspects of Tantra was this Leela. Leela means divine play. And what is that play? So many things, everything. Life is a stage. And the play is between Shiva and Shakti originally. What does that mean? It means consciousness and energy. They are in a divine dance of hide and seek. Once upon a time, there was all pure oneness, consciousness, whole and complete unto himself, Shiva. And then he got sad and bored, or maybe he didn't get sad and bored. He just decided to have a friend, right? Adam needed Eve. Shiva needed Shakti. And he chose to limit himself into an infinite number of forms called Shakti. Or one might interpret it that Shakti decided to birth herself from this one consciousness and created a multitude of forms in the world. And this was this sort of beginning of life on Earth, or cosmic life if you want. But a psychological interpretation is of that I think might be a lot easier to understand if you're new to all this is, have you noticed that there's a part of your mind that's watching your mind? Why do we even say the words, I think, if you are generating thoughts? And by the way, you're definitely aware that you're generating thoughts because some of your thoughts you really don't like and you wish you didn't have them. Am I right or wrong, right? Like, I really wish I didn't have certain thoughts. And have you ever wanted to have certain thoughts and you tried your darndest to have certain thoughts and it's really hard to have certain thoughts? And so the question is, well, where are these thoughts coming from? And if you kind of rewind that tape far enough through your meditation practice, what you see is that there's a place that's birthing the thoughts. And that's that place in our mind that is not thinking. And we call that Shiva. We call that pure divine essence of mind that is actually silent. It's the non-thinking. It's the observance. And Shakti is the everything else. It's the thoughts. It's the feelings. It's the images. It's the energies. It's the fears. It's the emotions. It's everything other than consciousness. Another key tenet of Tantra is the relationship between you and a teacher or a mentor. And I think that's really, really, really important to mention because I feel so fortunate to have a mentor and to be a mentor because it's that individualized relationship that is so powerful. And by the way, your priest, your therapist, your teachers, they don't have to call themselves tantric. It's anyone in your life that's helping you become more expanded and less limited. It's anyone in your life that's helping you truly step into who you are, reveal truth, and not get stuck in our traumas and dramas and patterns. And that guru relationship, whereby we mean guru in the sense of someone helping remove the darkness from your eyes, right? Christ talked about this. You are throwing stones, but you are the one who has committed the sin as well. And so it's very hard to see our own flaws and our own faults, especially the ones we don't want to see that are the most hidden. But it's easy for others to see. And so that othering is actually, when it's held in the right context as sacred, holy, deeply respectful, loving, and again, I'll say it, deeply respectful of each person's individuality, that relationship is one of the most powerful, tender relationships that can exist. Another key tenet is this idea of the subtle energy body. So you may have heard me talk on the show about your chakras. And again, we go into this in depth in our courses at Shakti School and working with what in the ancient tradition was called the serpent power, Kundalini and Prana Shakti. These ancient terms, they referred to the serpentine power in this way because, well, culturally and geographically in India, the serpents were very real for their mind. We had to be very aware of snakes in India, right? It was a metaphor, of course, because you don't have an actual snake in your body, but it was a wonderful metaphor for the way in which energy moves and the coiled, sleeping nature of a snake. And when you touch it, it starts to rise up. And so there was this idea that when you began to open to and investigate your own body and your own breath and your own feelings and sensations, you began to pour the light of your attention into these areas. And the light of our attention, especially if we add loving kindness, acts as a sort of awakening enzyme on this ancient dormant energy. And you begin to pour this energy through your body. And when energy flows through the body, it's like taking a rotor-rooter to your pipes. The first thing that happens is you see all the shit. You feel it, maybe. You see it. You re-experience a little bit of it sometimes. It's quite intense, quite painful, and incredibly liberating. I hope I'm not being too esoteric. I hope that this is landing to synthesize what I just said about your energy, it's this, and I hope this lands. All my life, I've been really afraid. And you may be like, what are you talking about, Katie Silcox? Or maybe you're very, very wise and can see me out there in podcast land listening, as you all do. But I've had fears very specifically, as have you. And I've also had a great amount of bravery in my lifetime. And I think those two things, those two oppositional forces can go hand in hand if you're practicing. The experience that I've had in Tantric practice, and especially the relationship I've had with my mentor, is one whereby I've opened my heart to the greatest fears that I have. But more globally, I feel that I've opened my heart to the greatest fears that we have. The greatest fear we all have is death. It's that we aren't going to be here, and we don't know where we're going, and we don't know who we're going to be, and if the we that we call we is even going to be. And as you practice, it's so tempting to want to know the answer to that question. And Tantra and Buddhism, in fact, say the answer isn't there. And it's in that not knowing, and it's in that not having the answer. It's in that no guarantees. It's in that place of I don't know, where actually all of the gold is sitting. That's where it is. That's the power spot. So when working with our energy, when we actually open to our greatest fears and we open to our own energy, we can actually see that the thing that we're so afraid of, we've never actually even tasted it. We've been running from it, but we've never even experienced it. So, for example, fear. I always thought that fear was this thing that happened to me, and when it comes, it just feels terrible and I want to get away from it. But through these practices, what I've realized is that I haven't actually felt fear. I've felt the resistance to fear. Do you guys feel me? It's like anger. Have you actually felt angry, or are you in that kind of netherworld of pre-angry irritation and annoyance that never actually touches into the fiery dragon rage that's sitting underneath? Because when you tap into actual rage, to actual anger, you realize you may have never allowed yourself to feel it in your life, and your whole body is lit on fire. Tantra is the practice of containing our emotions so as to open to them, so as to, without pretense of a desired outcome, see what alchemizes in the process of you being lovingly with yourself. And so in this system, there is no up or down. There is no left or right. There is no good or bad. It's just what is here. And step one. Step two, open to it. What is here? Open to it. Panini, in the ancient tradition of India, calls this the practice of sva. Tantra sva means you, self. Tantra, this methodology, one who is self-dependent, one who is whole and complete unto herself, one who takes the reins of her life and takes radical responsibility for who she is and where she comes from and the baggage she's brought in. And she uses that as the fuel and the fodder for the bonfire of her transformation. Panini, thank you for telling us about Svatantra, because this is ultimately, no matter how many wonderful relationships we have, and my God, that book I wrote, y'all, called Glowworthy, that's a book of Tantra. And the book could have actually been called Conversations with Crystal. That book emerged out of an ongoing, I had the privilege of living with my teacher, which they say is one of the greatest karmas that a yogini can have. I got to live on her land for a long time. And It was not always fun to live by your teacher, by the way. I would say it's like living with your husband. It's like, oh man, this person sees me and is calling me to my highest. But that karma has made me realize no matter what wonderful karma you have, some of you out there, I mean, I feel like the most fortunate yogini in the world to have a great teacher who's not a freaking, molester or weirdo, because that happens a lot in the Tantra world. I do value that, But what I've realized through that is that despite having a wonderful teacher, like I have to do my own practice. And some of you out there have wonderful partners. And you may have the best beloved partner, husband, wife in the world, and you have to do your own practice. You may have an amazing community, a great group of friends, like the best spiritual community in the world, and you have to do your own practice. It's like that's the meaning of Svatantra. It doesn't mean that you're an island that doesn't need anyone. On the contrary, Tantra is this quintessential understanding of the interconnectivity of all things. Okay, so I haven't even gotten to what I prepared. What are more of these core first principles of Tantra? And I think this is really important. At least in the tradition I studied, the Sri Vidya, which is ever emerging, the number one principle of Sri Vidya is the name. The name itself, Vidya, means a method for a science of, like Veda for Ayurveda, little different, but same. And Shri means resplendent, beautiful, resplendent, full of light. And it's this special kind of beauty. It's enduring. It is not the beauty that is fickle, like the beauty of youth. It isn't the beauty that's manipulative, like the beauty of a sex symbol. It's the beauty of pure light itself. It's the beauty of recognition and illumination. And I get to see this in myself. I get to see this in my students when we're in school and I say something or they say something, and you can watch Shri. You can watch the beauty ripple through the whole Zoom room in their faces. It's the beauty that emerges when something that you've been holding on to tightly for a really long time as real, you start to loosen your grip on, and like love can flow. Tantra understands that you and your life as it is a sacred mandala. What does that mean? It's a circular representation of the complexity that you are nested in as an individual. You are surrounded by divinity on all sides. That everything in this life, as we do our practice more and more, we begin to see everything here is impermanent, and therefore each breath in and out in the now moment is holy, precious, and valuable. We talked about using our awareness and our energy as methods for investigating our bodies and our minds. In other systems of both, well, really many traditions, including Christianity, the body and human experiences like sex and, disease and all this karmic realm is seen as that which must be transcended. And there's a time and a place for those practices, and there's a wisdom in seeing the body as something very limited, and it's true, right? Like the body's going to go, and everything eventually will go. Even our most treasured objects and people will not last forever. And so this tradition says, yeah, we get that. But we're going to make this experience of temporality as beautiful and enjoyable as possible. And B, even more mysteriously and mystically, samsara is nirvana, meaning the things that are these repetitive patterns in us are also the very things that allow us to open into expansion. The problems in our life are the place that we can learn how to open. It's not the things that are going right as much, but the things that trip us up, the things that scare us, the things that terrify us, the things that anger us, our triggers, to speak in a modern way, are the golden gateways into the unaccessed energy behind them. And so therefore, in the Buddhist Tantric tradition, we talk about awareness as being, we spoke of this in another podcast, but we could repeat it in every one, and that is, what is here, and stay open to it. Tantra also says that it can be defined as whatever works. For some of us, it's yoga. For some of us, it's jogging. For some of us, it's Christian prayer. For some of it's a mantra. For some of us, it's gyms and astrology and crystals and dolphins, whatever. I've done them all. Tantra is whatever is working. And that you are the only one that can answer the question, but is it working? And what do we want to do? What does it mean? Is it working? You get to decide what your goal is. And you get to determine if it's working. Tantra understands that your body and your mind are a microcosm that directly mirror the macrocosm. And in one of my classes with my teacher last week, we were able to look at actual images of the axons in your neuropeptides. And what you can see in the neurons is that the axon looks identical. Your neurons themselves look identical to the galaxy and the configuration of the galaxy. If you go to Google and pull up an image of your neurons and what they look like, and then a picture of galaxy configurations, you can see the macrocosm mirroring the tiniest microcosm. And we can even go down to the molecular and atomic and subatomic level. Tantra understands that we can coexist and be in the transcendent in the same time, meaning we can have husbands and wives and children, families and complicated lives, and we can have nice clothing and desires and good food and chocolate and sex and puppies and like all the good things, right? And that those things are not impediments to God. If we know how to use them, not even the word use, but better said, if we know how to be with them in the same way that we are with the things that are the things we don't enjoy about life. Tantra says that through doing these practices, you will have more Bogha, and that's a word that means pleasure. You will also have more Bhukti, which means success. And so Tantra says that's okay. It's okay to want pleasure. It's okay to enjoy things. And it's okay to want to be successful in the world, right? Bhukti means success, but it can also mean spiritual success. And in a way, Tantra says you get to play the game, the Leela, as long as you want. When you're a baby, you want to play with baby dolls and Barbies and toy trucks. And when you're 17, you don't want to play with those anymore. And teenagers are interested in what they're interested in. And hopefully, as we develop, when we're in our 40s, we don't want to do what we were doing in college. And if we do, we call that a problem. It doesn't look so good, does it, in your 40s? And your body just can't handle it. It's the same as our spiritual life. The pleasures that we enjoyed as young practitioners. I remember being like a bliss bunny. I wanted to do my practice at Spiritual Materialism 101, right? I'm going to do all these practices so I can experience energy and spiritual bliss. And I still deal with that. That's called spiritual materialism. It's doing your practice so that you can have the intended enjoyable effect. It's like the slot machine at the casino. I'm going to put in all this time doing these mantras and hopefully I'm going to get back the big, payout. That's okay. but it's immature. Because the ultimate spiritual pleasure and the ultimate spiritual success is that you don't care, come what may. Krishnamurti said the only difference between me and you is that I just don't mind. I don't mind what happens. That's the third thing Tantra will give us, and that's moksha, which means liberation and freedom. And it's not that we leave this mortal coil because it's a shitty place. It's that we are free from thinking that it's going to be these temporary things that are ever going to satisfy the deepest spiritual longing, which is truth. So moksha is this liberation that allows us to stay open now in this human form on this earth, to stay open now to come what may. And trust me, dear listener, this is the highest practice. This is not easy. It is super hard. And that's why we have to bring in our Divine Mother. And that's why we have to bring in our Divine Mother. And who is the Divine Mother? You know who she is. She's the one that loves you no matter how much you F it up. She's the one that loves you no matter what job you have or what your body looks like or what disease you're working through or how your relationship's going. She has got your back. That's the divine mothering principle archetype that is within you and all around you. And so Tantra is also this practice of opening to this limitless flow of love and sweetness and abundance that is always here in endless supply, called prana shakti, the energy of reality. That energy can hold you, feed you, nurture you, fill you, rejuvenate you, heal you, inform you, and most importantly, dissolve the aspects of your past that you're still holding on to, known and unknown, so as to bring about more prajna. Prajna means highest wisdom. And so my prayer for myself and my prayer for you is that may we all pray that the highest aspect of our heart, mind, come online. There are limitless practices for getting quiet and feeling our own energy. And there are methods for doing this for different energetic effects. And I would love to have you in school. This is where we go deep into this. This podcast is a little bit more of an opening into what Tantra is. And again, it's a lifetime journey. If you are interested in doing more, if you're interested in having a teacher, and really a teacher, not as one person, but as a place. We have a place. It's called the Shakti School. And the cool thing about our school is there isn't one guru. We're pretty anti-guru, to be honest. There is the principle of the guru, which is a function of wisdom that emerges in all of us when we come together and we aspire towards the highest values and morals and goodness of our own heart mind. And that comes online. And so if you're interested in knowing more about what Tantra is and how you can heal all of these different layers of body and mind in a very practical way, in a very loving way, in a very soft way, a very slow way, we would love to have you. Level 1 is starting, as you guys know, I tell you every week. It's January 15th. I am so excited. I love my level 1 and level 2 girls right now. And they're women. I don't know why I say girls, because we're just girls, we're just girlfriends. It's such a girlfriends vibe. I couldn't love these ladies more. I have to say, every single year, it's not a competition, but every year, Sarah and Kirsten and Eva and Eden, my team, and all the teachers are just marveled by the kind of humans that this program attracts. If you've been thinking about it, October's the month to join because it's $500 less. So get that early bird pricing, you guys. And by the way, October 31st, we're having a totally free sacred Halloween ceremony with yours truly and the whole Shakti team. Bunch of gals from level 1 and level 2, I'm sure will be there. Lots of new folks. If you want to have a holy, healthy, happy Halloween, come join us. It's totally free, October 31st. We don't have any of the links yet. I just want you to put it on your calendar. When we have the links, we'll get them to you guys. If you're not on our mailing list, make sure to get on it so you can get all of these updates. We're on Instagram. That's another place where you can find all the links and all the updates. And if you're like, can I talk to Katie on the phone? The answer is yes. You can talk to a channeling of me. You can talk to one of my health coaches who are amazing, real women who are actually better to talk to than me if you want to learn more about the program, because they've actually done the program and I haven't. I'm the teacher of the program. And so they've gone through it. They are absolute gems of a human being. If you want to know more about if this is the right thing for you, give them a call. We've got the link below in the show notes so you can set up a 30-minute phone call. And it doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It can be 5. But connect with us. We'd love to be here for you guys. All right. I hope this little window into the great mystery and beauty that is Tantra has been helpful for you. And I'm sending you all much love. Until next time. A big special thanks to Kevin Carlisle of Goodbye Gemini, who wrote this beautiful podcast music, and to DJ Juan Pablo Jimenez in southern Spain for mixing it and making it magic.